y'all, Dr. HB with another example and right along, this time for the Document Design Revision Project. And so first, I just grabbed that document that we are working on, and then I read through to create my list of revisions. Top of the list was first changing the font because it was literally so hard to read, and then going in and fixing the citations because right away I saw a link hanging out is not a good citation. And so I followed that link so I could get all the information that I needed, and then just double checked by actually pulling up the IEEE reference guide with citations. Just go ahead and double check your work on that. Now I just kind of go through and update some headings. So while I update the headings to expand a bit more on the font, so that original font, Courier New, it's definitely super common, especially you see it in screenplays, but anytime you need a very standard expected amount for the document, that type of font works really well, but it is very hard to read. So the pro is you will be very consistent in your page. The con is the leading and the very square uniform design makes it hard to actually distinguish the letters. And so I just went ahead and updated it just to a more standard font and actually pulled our UCCS style guide. I go back and change it to be Roboto and Arial later. So as I was doing that, I was just going through and adding those figures you saw, adding the alt text, making sure that my graphs and my charts and my visuals had that extra information. I decided here to create that table just because the bullet points had so little information to it that it didn't really feel right and didn't feel like you were able to skim through the industries as well either. And that's where the rows for the table saved me some space, but also kind of just made it a bit easier to see the industry info and still have that kind of connotation of data situated with it. Now in this paragraph, I'm like, wow, they're comparing some specific categories of data. That could be a really good thing for maybe a column chart. This assignment, I am making it kind of like that B, good enough level. And so there's definitely not the best column chart, I've ever created, but it's not, meant to be. And really just thinking about, okay, in this small paragraph, what categories are they, comparing, and how could we really show how kind of dramatic this teen unemployment is compared to the kind of adult segments. Now I am going back and deciding to add some colors into here. Again, if I had put more time and attention, I would have thought through the colors a bit more, but I did kind of think, okay, well, green is sort of forestry and health, so that went with that one. But I did like how I connected it to the different paragraphs and color schemes. Last, adding and replacing that image that didn't really make sense of a survey with something related to pandemic-related trends from the Noun project, and making sure to add that Noun project citation just in there, so that way it's all cited properly. And per usual, I just started messing around with some of the layout, the sizing, just kind of sort of fidgeting with some of those last things. Then I decided, you know what, I'm not making actual changes anymore. I just need to finish, and that's what I did. So now I had to start on the memo, portion of it. So I'm just kind of going through trying to find where I saved my report, my document, so that way I could reference it as I was creating the memo. So going through, just doing to, from, date, subject, just those typical parts of emails, memos that you got to fill in so who you're writing to, and then popping in my different headings. Again, even though a memo is a nice short, just a couple pages sort of max, headings always help readers. And so I wanted to make sure our interns in this case could quickly get to that information. Under each heading, just kind of adding a nice overview, explaining, what they did well, or some encouragements, and kind of adding in those sort of topic sentences and purpose statements per the heading, and then finding my subheadings, all the different aspects that I wanted. Here, just pulling up our reference guides, my notes, so that way I would have that really clear reference of why I made the choices I did and how to explain it, and adding them into our little reference database as I was going. We're talking about design, so, I better work on some design. So adding some nice bullet points just to make it very easy to skim the different changes, the actions that were required, and went ahead and pulled some stuff about typeface and typography and how, okay, we needed to update it to the style guide. And in that unit, right, I had linked the UCCS style guide as the thing that you should reference when in doubt, because we are working in the UCCS organization. And so that's some of the info that I linked and justification that I offered. Now I'm just getting in right to the data visuals. What do we have to change there? I had to add the figures, add a table, adjust some of the columns, just explaining that information and sort of why is more helpful than having a paragraph of data, because a paragraph of data is not great at showing a story or making a quick visual reference. Our audience is going to be able to interpret that information and that insight much better. For accessibility is where I talked about the alt text changes that I had to make. And then under the credibility theme is really where I got into, hey, by the way, the citation, was messed up. We want to make sure we have all of those really tidy and up to our IEE style standards. Then I started going into the action item. So thinking, okay, if I'm in this scenario, writing this for my interns, this is a learning moment. What do I want them to do next time? And this actually drew back from what we had learned earlier as well about, the drafting process, iterating, make sure to stop and plan a document. So that way it, is going to be overall better, because our first version is never the best. Here I'm changing the style guide on the headings like we practiced, because blue is not really not what I wanted. Now I'm just kind of playing around again, being a little indecisive, more indecisive than I needed to be, making kind of lateral changes. Inserted my works cited or my references, into there. Here, I was going back to the UCCS style guide, adjusting some font, and just doing last checks on my document. And just like that, the document design revision project was done. Overall, this took me about maybe 90 minutes, said and done. Probably could have been done sooner, but, started doing those lateral changes. And here I'm just going to turn it in.